Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. Hey, it's Joe Partavilla once again, and welcome back to our continuing conversation with Dominic Stow, OSF's Regional Vice President in Australia and New Zealand. Let's get back to our B2B talk, and even though I prefer never to talk about the pandemic ever again, we have to discuss COVID's long-term impact on supply chains down under.
It's definitely one of those things that's coming up and being discussed a lot more. And I mean, New Zealand, Australia have actually been impacted quite hard with the reduced shipping from China. I mean, obviously the whole world is, but there's been quite a lot. So again, the retailers are looking around, not ordering stuff that's not going to sell. So there's a lot of looking at what sells and what doesn't. And of course, if they've got old systems that are clunky, they can't build that picture and don't understand the trends and all that well. So, and they really want to be able to start to build up that intelligence and views around what should we be ordering when and all that, and trying to reduce what's sat in a warehouse to actually slotting it into this very tightly constrained supply chain. And it's a challenge. I mean, I would definitely say it is a challenge. It comes up in discussions, but the smart companies are looking moving into marketplace, so actually leveraging channel partners and all that. So that they're actually pulling together a wider product offering, but not being with all the hassle of dealing with the supply chain on it. So they're bringing together, so they sell their core product and the stuff they can manufacture, but rather than set up a whole new supply chain about something that they wanted to go do, they're partnering with another organization, they're sharing customer data, and they're consolidating that in a marketplace. And that's a real thing that's starting to be driven, definitely. And there's a couple of key marketplaces being created, and independent companies are creating their own at the minute. So it is changing the view of the world a little bit, for sure.
Data is in the center of everything, and the way data flows through enterprises is important. And in the past, you would have, let's say, these famous ERP projects that companies would do that would take 10 years and would cost them an arm and a leg, and it's in order to capture data. Well, those things and those years are in the past. Now you need to put things together in a much more flexible and agile way. You need to have systems that can give you the proper data as close to real time as possible. Why? Because then you are able to see that in your market, a specific item is in demand, and you are able to also act upon it and order more, work with your supply chain, and work with your procurement in order to make sure that that item gets to you in a timely manner. And having these systems that allow you this kind of flexibility nowadays is no longer like a 5 years project. You can set up things that are just enough for you to give you enough visibility, to provide you enough data so that you can make proper business decisions, smart business decisions, and to have enough details so that you can order the right things, so you can bring to the market the right things, despite the supply chain challenges. Because you're no longer working with a just-in-time, real-time supply chain. You work with a much longer time frame, but the mindset of being able to capture the data, being able to use the data in a meaningful way, and that data to properly flow through your enterprise, through your company, from sales to procurement to supply chain to accounting to whatever, that has to be there. This mindset of, hey, I'm looking at my data, I'm capturing information, and then I'm going to make decisions based on this information. And if you don't have it, you're going to have a much harder time to run your business. Imagine that you are ordering stuff that doesn't sell, and you do this 2-3 times a year, and the fourth time you're going to go out of business because it's just not working.
And Gerry, this all obviously anecdotally, but have you noticed that companies that have embraced digital transformation, they've sort of made it through this sort of Mad Max Thunderdome way of business because of the fact of all these sort of restrictions that we've been talking about, the digital transformation, the companies that have embraced that, they've been able to make it through that desert?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the way they operate their business. So you can see in the mindset. If they have the right mindset of looking at things, the way they look at the data, the way they look at their business processes, the way they challenge themselves in everything they are doing, when a situation like this comes up, they react quickly. They react because they have the reflexes there. It's they have trained for this. Like think of a sport analogy. You train a lot for a competition, and then when that moment comes, you're ready. You're there. You are using your muscle memory, and that's the same thing in an enterprise. You have the right best practices, the right approaches, and when something like a crisis comes up, you can react quickly. You can adapt. You can do something about it.
If you want a real example, I'll give you one. It's just an incredible example. So, yeah, again, we don't want to talk about the pandemic, but I will, because it's a good thing that kicks things off. When that kicked in and New Zealand went into lockdown, and they shut all the restaurants and bars and everything like that, we'd put in B2B solution for wholesale for a big supermarket chain. And that business, it got hammered. No doubt. Nobody's buying, none of the restaurants are buying, no one's buying like that. Yet the demand on the B2C, so the normal supermarket chains, so the other chains there, was really ramping up because everyone's ordering online, and their service center was getting really hit because of orders that were missed or mistakes. So they set our initiative of how do we keep our wholesale business going. We're on this amazing B2B platform that we'd put in, and they came up with the idea of creating emergency boxes, which was a set of milk, bread, water, eggs, flour, all that stuff that would be supplied from the wholesaler because they had their own stock and stores and all that, and the revenue would go through them. So i.e., let's point the B2B to B2C to provide these emergency provisions boxes and all that. And
wow,
that initiative was kicked off, and we were called in, and within a couple of weeks it was live and working, and wow, the executive could not believe it. And it's because they'd invested in the right platform. They had thought about the payment mechanisms that they would be taking to B2B later. It used to be on invoice, but they could very quickly put in credit card. That was the main thing needed changing. And it was literally a few weeks, and they were live and they were serving. So the wholesale side of the business kept ticking along, and they were filling, and most people were just ordering a box of milk and flour. And so that then took the pressure off the B2C. So that service was better, and they delivered it all the way through. And then they turned it off at the right time and flipped it back to being the wholesale and B2B. And it's just an incredible story. It's one of those ones that you see the true power of where you put in, a really good customer-centric platform that's integrated well with ERP to just flip it. And it was a huge success.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that, Dom. And it's funny because one of the popular words during the pandemic was the word pivot, but it's great to have the idea to pivot, but how do you pivot? And luckily you were able to be the pivot point to make that company survive. Do you think if it wasn't for your applications and the work you did, that company would still be around today?
Yeah, I mean, they're big. They're a really big food, but they're wholesale. There's a franchisee. So the franchisees would have been, they would have struggled. They'd probably not be in quite as healthy position. And, they've continued to invest. So, the learning they had was we need to do more with our call center. We need to use more AI. So we've put in more chatbots and AIs and to deal with if there's ever those spikes in volumes again. And the wholesale, the actual franchisees are more happy to invest in that now because they've seen the true value, how suddenly a platform they invested in has now kept them going and then gone back to their old business, literally click, and they're going. So, did it really help them? Absolutely. Was it amazing that the leadership team there and the exec have the confidence in their platforms? Brilliant, right? And it's nice when you see those stories, it's to be able to sit and tell people.
But this really works when they already have that muscle memory of being able to challenge themselves and set up systems in a way that are different. And they were ready in the mindset. They were ready from an attitude point of view. So when that crisis came and they had to do something about it, they were already prepared, mentally prepared in the way they were doing things to approach it, to kind of embrace the challenge and run with it. So that's from my point of view, that's really what makes a huge difference in how companies went through the pandemic or not. It's always a good experience, and we love a challenge. And I personally love a challenge when these things have happened. We said, okay, well, let's just roll with it and try to do everything we can to help our customers, to make sure that we can shift their processes so that they can continue to be in business. And I can tell you, the ones that were able to properly make it through it were the ones that they had this mindset of challenging themselves, the mindset of transforming their businesses, the mindset of trying new things and pushing the limits in a very aggressive manner. So those were the ones that were really very successful through the pandemic.
I want to pull on the thread on the word you used, attitude. And I feel like that the word really doesn't get used enough. And I want to use this example of it. When you speak to companies about why they do things, and you guys will probably laugh when I say this, when you ask company, why do you do this? It goes, well, that's because we've always done it that way. And I feel like a lot of companies that have sort of gone away from that mindset, they're the ones that are excelling now. But the ones that are that's the way we've always done it. How can people shake that attitude of, we've always done it that way?
Yeah, that's it's very common, as you said, that I think you got to wind back a bit, right? I mean, I'm from an IT background, obviously, and we've done it. And I think over particularly early 2000s to 2010, we didn't do ourselves any favors in winning confidence in businesses with giant ERP implementations that bloated out, building very siloed applications that were quite, because it was pretty easy to do. I think, cloud came along and started to turn things on its head. But I don't think that the attitudes have changed in line with it quite within businesses. They're still scarred. They still, and that goes right back to procurement teams. If procurement teams are proactive and get the this is around a journey and a learning, rather than we've got to have this price for the vendor and we've got to do this, and they use all those old techniques. The attitude thing is everywhere in the business. It's around, and that comes from the leadership. You can just tell when you go. I did the supermarket chain that I'm talking about. Amazing leadership, absolutely incredible forward-thinking leadership. And then other organizations, you have little sparks and pillars of it, but you may even not have that consolidated view, and it stops at maybe the CXO level or something like that. So although I think encouraging, what I would say is I think attitude is really changing. Again, I think there's you're seeing now that there's an appetite across all the business functions to unify, put that customer at the center, do better. It's not just about making lots of money now, it's about keeping your customers. They can move like that. If you're an energy company, how long does it take you to change energy companies now? Like one click? I think it's like one click. You just go to a website, I'll go with them, and everything's gone. So, it's really important now. And so, and then I'll be brutally honest, that there's a lot of new young blood coming up and challenging the way we're thinking in business. And there's some really smart execs, and that makes a huge difference. You get that sponsorship around projects. It's really refreshing when you walk in. And I would say that every company really needs to focus on their culture and the attitudes and challenge the way they've been thinking. Don't accept poor, definitely from your IT and infrastructure and all that, but also give them a chance to spread their wings and take a little bit of risk on some of the technologies and make a change from that side.
And Dominic, talk to me about silos, especially down in Australia, New Zealand. I know when you guys do lockdown, I mean, it's you do not play around. I'm sure that comes up a lot in the conversations with the people you work with. What's some of the advice you give some of these folks, or what are some of the solutions that you've come up with?
So yeah, we love our lockdowns. Hats off to the guys in Melbourne. I think they were the winners of the lockdown. I think 280 odd days last year they were locked down. Crazy. And it did change working behaviors, but it also changed investment in tech, and particularly things like call centers and all that. So I guess they got a real accelerated focus. How can we have our call center teams working remotely? And they've actually kept that model. And another little driver down under is, I mean, you've probably heard about it. We've probably got the most unaffordable housing you've ever seen in your life in the major cities and centers. And so employers have really, gained the trust through the process. And then the technologies, collaboration tools like Slack, putting things in like that, using a service desk that's, connected to the sales, and it's all one connected platform, like Salesforce provides. What that's enabled them to do is to say to staff, you don't need to live in Auckland, you don't need to live. So you're seeing now these distributed service center teams going away, and they can move to more affordable regions, which is great for those regions. And honestly, it's really good. They're breathing a life back into it, and it's about a mindset, really. So, I agree with Gerry. It's, if you give people the tools and the technology, I think you can break those silos down. And sure, you get people together. I mean, we're here, in this beautiful location, and Gerry's organized this to get the team together. It's basically get the team together, do some team building, have some fun to build those relationships. Because that human touch is a really great thing to have. But, in terms of working, I think technology offers so many options of remote working, collaboration, and to break down those silos. And I think it's a responsibility of everyone to just be mindful of it. And, for people to know, hey, time out, we should probably get together and do a team building or, to get you back in the zone. So, yeah, it's fundamentally changed Australia and New Zealand, but the change is really, it's exciting. It's nice to see regions that were dropping, people were leaving the smaller towns. Yeah, they're picking back up again. And that's great. Affordable housing, who loves that? I mean,
well, it's funny because I don't like to use the word force, but something that digital transformations has sort of done for a lot of people is it's forced people to be intentional. The old way of bumping into someone at the coffee machine or the water cooler, that's obviously a thing of the past. So you have to be intentional in interacting with your customers and obviously your team. So how can people shift that passive interactions and make it more intentional? Gerry, I know that's a big part of your company, and being aware of what everyone is doing and what everyone's talking about, what sort of like the thermometer is of the team. But it takes a big part of it takes being intentional.
Yes, you need to set up a governance system. The collaboration doesn't just happen. You need to set it up. You need to say, okay, well, you need to have a meeting system when a project starts, when you have all kinds of activities. There are always meeting systems and ways of doing meetings with agendas, with action points. So there is an entire structure, a governance structure that makes these things happen. And that's why this actually works. And we have situations and colleagues that say, hey, I need to go and work from my home office, because at the office every 10 minutes somebody comes to me and I'm not able to do my work. It's disruptive at times, so while you have the positive effect of having people together and be able to communicate better and somehow, but you also have the other negative side effect of constant disruption in some cases. So yes, but having a proper governance system, a proper meeting system in place with well-defined outcomes and agendas in these meetings, this is very important, because otherwise people would not just call somebody up, just let's just chat just because. It's you need to be intentional about it. You need to have a system about it with clearly defined goals in order for that to happen. And that's really the focus, focusing on the results that really then drives everything. The governance system, the meeting system, all of these things will converge towards delivering the results.
What we noticed was, when we were pretty much all forced online and everyone's using digital tools, you're working with customers, and I love the human factor that came in when kids walked in the background. Like going, yeah, you got your procurement your big boss, the next minute her beautiful little daughter comes in and, Mummy, I want this, and they're talking about a contractual deal. It's just really refreshing. It's actually, I felt that, we've got to know a number of our customers so much better. We were doing things like sending some wine, New Zealand and Australia are pretty good with our wine. We send a bottle of wine to them, and then we'd do once a month, yeah, and we still do it. We still just get together for the remote ones that, rather than getting on a plane, it's just get together, wine, or you send, like a cake or something like that. And then you have a bit of a get together and you use the platform. I mean, Zoom was a game changer because it's just a lot easier for people to hook up. They don't have to sign up and everything like that, team collaboration, all these tools have, again, all come together really well to just, I guess, break down the silos. And I think it's just around enabling your team to have those tools. And as you said, making sure that we use them and from that side. So yeah, it's been good. Very human, I think.
That's great. And lastly, let's talk about leadership. And I'll start with you, Dominic. In your role as regional vice president, how has the last 2 years either changed the way you lead or improved the way you lead? What do you feel skill sets, maybe the word we like to throw around is soft skills, have you developed that have made you the leader you are today?
Yeah, I've definitely changed over the last few years. I realized when all things look uncertain in the whole world, is in a leadership position, you need to provide that vision and where you're going and why it's going to be good and what's going to be great. And that's not only our staff, that's our clients. It's around, understanding and being empathetic and getting all that. So I think for me, I became way more connected to my people. I mean, I used to be pretty connected, but I mean, literally, I found I was really into the devil of the detail around how our team's doing, how our clients are doing. And that's the first thing I think I just sort of, rather than running around like a headless chicken, jumping on flights to Wellington and Auckland, I kind of had a breather. It just, that natural thing. And I think that just allows you to have a little bit of a reflection on yourself and where you can add a lot of value. And people just want to see that we're heading here. And, Gerry does it. He'll stand up, like this morning, he stood up to the whole team and he said where we're heading and how we're going. And you can see it. That's what people, if you work for any organization, and clients want to hear it as well. I mean, they like to know where we're heading. They want to know about the recent investment we've had. It means that they're working with a successful company and we're obviously doing something right. And that gives them the confidence to go forward. So yeah, I think my biggest change was really around back to the people and less charging around on the business and the sales and all that, because that kind of took care of itself.
And Gerry, obviously you're not from the Elon Musk school of leadership. How about you? How do you feel you've developed over the last couple of years?
I like Elon Musk for many things. I like the fact that he's bold. I like the fact that he was really challenging some assumption in the industry. I like the fact that he surrounded himself with smart people that are driven and inspired. These are all great things. I don't necessarily like his way of just talking for, I don't know, talking sometimes, not even thinking through what he's doing and just talking. Sometimes you need to filter yourself. Like it's good not to be all the time what we call yourself. It's good to think before you speak, to be a little bit more intentional about what you're doing. It's good to also pay attention to how your actions are affecting the life of the people around you and how your words affect the feelings of others and the life of other people. Because as leaders, we in my company, we have now 2,000 employees with their families and everything. Everything that we do affects their day-to-day and in a way or another matters. So we cannot just speak freely without any kind of filter just because you want to be genuine. You want to be, I think there is too much, value and too much emphasis put on you need to be real, but what is real? Like talking without properly thinking before, it's not necessarily real. It's just unfiltered stuff. It's. I think that there is a little bit more a place for thinking things through before you are talking, especially when you know that what you are saying and how you're saying things and how you interact with people really affects the people around you. Elon Musk's style of leadership, it's not black or white. You have things that I absolutely love and things that I don't like, and that's fine.
And when did you realize, Gerry, that words matter? Because that's important. I mean, a lot of people say, they're just saying this, they're just talking, they're trying to be real. But as a leader along the way of you building OSF, when did you realize that every word you say was going to be picked up on, I'm sure, from employee 1 to employee 2,000 now? But when did you discover the impact of your own words?
Well, it was early in the company life when I realized that by talking to people that they don't necessarily have my context. They don't necessarily understand my entire context and where I'm coming from. So sometimes even in sometimes cultural things, you don't have the same background than the people around you. So they would not understand you the way you meant it, and with the proper context, context matters. And I ended up hurting people just because I didn't pay attention to how I was speaking and the words I was using, and we were essentially in terms of information, we were not on different places. We were on the same page, but just because I didn't phrase it properly, I ended up hurting somebody's feelings, and I it happened once, twice, 3 times, and then I started realizing that, hey, actually it matters to kind of step back a little bit and filter things out a little bit, thinking things through a little bit before you speak and willy-nilly say whatever it passes through your mind. So that's. And why? Because you care about people. It's you don't want to offend people. You don't want to piss off people. What you really want is to convey a message, and that's the purpose of communication. That's the purpose of interaction. The end of it is you want to convey information and you want to create a good environment conducted towards results and performance. And what's the point of messing it all up by just creating a tense environment or something that you didn't even want it to do? It just. Yeah. It's just because you didn't pay attention to how you were speaking. It's
wow. Well, that's great. I mean, it required some self-awareness. Like you said, it took you a couple of times and you realized, oh, shoot, I got to fix this. And Dominic, I'm going to give you the last word. What kind of leader is Gerry? You've been with him for about a year. I mean, obviously, you got to be careful with your words at this point. Oh. But talk to me about Gerry as a leader and running OSF.
The first word that came to mind was crazy, but that's just not fair.
Hey, words matter, Dominic. Words matter.
yeah, like it wasn't that. So what Gerry's real strength, and and that's part. We'd been approached by other companies to sell, and I guess it's a little bit of a dating game when you meet. And what I liked is Gerry's got a vision that he's not constrained by where to go and all that. People are really at the forefront of his mind, right? So you just heard what Gerry said, and I think any leader, we're a services business. We have people, we do stuff, and you've got to that. And Gerry had a very similar set of values around the people and the growth of those people, challenging. When we're doing well, actually challenging how we're doing. Can we do better? Can we do that? And I really respect and like that. I think that's something that Gerry does a great job. We'll all be like happy, hey, we've done this. And then Gerry will drop the bomb about his next crazy idea. There's the word crazy, right? And it's great. It actually makes it exciting. It makes, as a level of senior management in the organization, it makes it good. It makes you feel that you're constantly moving forwards, one step forwards as the OSF, we sort of say now and again. And that's a good thing, and that's Gerry, and there's a whole army of people with a similar set of values that work that way. So, for me, it gives us confidence that we're going from strength to strength. We're building great relationships, and I know that we'll always do right by our people. So, makes you come to work and be happy, right?
That's great. Gerry, did he do a good job answering that? We're going to keep Dom around.
I think we share these values, and that's why we are today working together. We share these values and being intentional about how we deal with our people and how we help them grow, and this how this entire thing comes together. I think we share that, and we have a very healthy working relationship. So again, as I mentioned before, like making things change when things are actually going well and you are doing well, it's sometimes people look at it as crazy. Why are you doing that? But that's exactly the right time to do it, and that's when you evolve. That's the best time to evolve and go to the next level. And there is a little bit of craziness in this constant challenging of, hey, let's have fun, let's go crazy about it, we can do something even more ambitious. Why not?
Awesome.
But doing this with your team, like having them all coming together, having them, like you feel that this is moving like a team. It's a team process, not a, I woke up in the morning and said, today I feel like changing everything. It's not like that. It's coming from the team, with the team, and moving forward as one team. That's really what's powerful about it.
Awesome. Well, Dominic, looks like you're going to be sticking around OSF for a little while. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, it's a real pleasure.
This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.